Hello, hello. Hey, folks. Welcome to the Routing Loop, our weekly show focusing on AWS networking, edge, network security. I'm Tom Adamski. I'm one of the rotating moderators. You might have noticed there's going to be five of us, so each of us has a different week. So you might have seen Alex last week. This week is me, and I have a great guest today. I have Neil with us. Neil, you want to do a bit of an intro, who you are, what you do, where you're based?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. Neil Yajnik here. I'm the product manager for AWS Shield, Network Security Director, based here in Santa Clara, California.
Got it. How long have you been with AWS, Neil?
Coming up on 5 years in a month.
Okay, so your badge is going to change soon, right?
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, we have a color scheme in Amazon. If you're been here 5 years, you get a different color badge. If you've been here 10 years, you get a different color. 15. I don't think I've seen anybody with a 20-year-old badge, but
Me
maybe
neither.
there's
Yeah.
probably there's probably a different color for it. We just don't know what it is. So since you're joining from the Shield side, I'm assuming what you have to for us today is going to be related to network security and security in general.
Yes, that's right. We're here primarily to talk about the launch of Network Security Director, which launched a couple of months ago in preview, and to take you guys through what the service is meant to do, and the benefits customers can gain from it.
You want to explain the difference between something launching in preview and then something launching GA? What does that mean for customers? Like it's in preview right now,
Mhm.
and then I'm assuming, going to go GA in the future. But what does the preview
Yeah.
mean actually? So,
Yeah. So the preview, what it means is it's effectively what you're getting is uh, near GA functionality. There might be some changes between now and GA, but by and large, it's meant to be a near close or almost close representation of what you can expect once the service is generally available. In our case, the preview is at no cost to customers. I believe there have been costs for others in the past, but generally preview services are at no cost to customers. So it's a way for you to kick the tires, check it out, give us the feedback, and then we can take a look at that and consider incorporating changes for general availability.
and how can customers give feedback? Is the expectation they'll feedback through the account teams? So they'll play around with it, talk to the AWS account team, and say, "Hey, we liked it, but give us more of this, less of that." Or is there another channel to do it directly through the account?
So generally, it would be through account teams. There are some mechanisms directly within the console experience that allow you to provide feedback directly, and I can talk a little bit about what those are as we go through the demo of it, specifically as it pertains to the queue experience and others. But there are areas there in which you can directly leave feedback.
Awesome. Okay, so I think the exciting bit today is that we have no slides, right? It's going to be straight to the demo, and Neil is going to take us through a demo environment. We're going to jump in the console, and we're just going to talk about the service through looking at the real life experience. So I'm going to add the console to the view, and we can kick off. So
Awesome.
add
So
sharing.
yeah, so this is AWS Shield Network Security Director. It is a net new network security management service that we launched at Reinforce in mid-June. So it's been a couple of months now in preview, as we mentioned earlier. And you can find it in the WAF and Shield console of the management console. So alongside services like AWS WAF, the Shield DDoS protection service that everyone is familiar with, as well as AWS Firewall Manager. So this is a new service that you can access directly within this same console. And it is as simple as clicking Get Started to enable this service. But before I do that, I can provide a little bit more background in terms of what is the goal of the service here. And the real goal here is our customers tell us quite often that there are a myriad of services customers can use to protect their applications, both from a network layer perspective as well as an application layer perspective. And in many cases, it's difficult to figure out what do I need where, right? And to what degree do I need to add certain rule sets? What is best practice? And now all of this can be found through documentation and other things. but it would be great if there was an easy way to understand what is currently adequately protected versus what is not, right? And that way you can easily go and implement the relevant services um, for your network. And so that is what this service is intended to address. Because many times, what our customers tell us is that simply gaining visibility into one, the resources in your network, what is currently talking to what, how they're currently protected or not. All understanding all of this is a lot of effort. It's a lot of steps. It requires either building or standing up various sets of tools to do this. And so what we want to do is make security easy, specifically network security easy on AWS, and to help guide you to the right places or to the right services to better protect your applications.
So
Uh,
prior to this, I guess customers had probably, a trusted advisor a little bit with maybe some
right?
hints, maybe some things they might have set up themselves in AWS config, but it sounded
Mhm.
like it was a much heavier lift. So we're kind of
Right.
doubling down specifically on the network security constructs and then giving advice on this is set up correctly. How is it set
Right.
up? Okay. So I'm very curious to see. I played around with it a little bit, so
Sure.
it was actually found stuff straight away in my account
Mhm.
that was actionable. So it was interesting to see.
Yeah, and one thing I would add here that is the key difference between say those other services or even other third-party tools you may be using or building on your own um, to solve for these problems is not only are we identifying what's currently protected or not protected, but we're telling you what is the network context of that configuration issue, in the sense that is it something that you should be worried about or not? Is it internet connected or not? Is it talking to certain other resources that maybe you do or do not want it to talk to? And based on those things, we're providing an assessment of what we believe is the best practice recommendation for addressing those configuration issues, and ensure that that you're adequately protecting applications. So it's making sure we're providing not just the insight into the configuration issue, but what is your network context associated with that? So that's the added layer that we're providing here. So as I mentioned, it's as simple as clicking get started. The very first step here is selecting whether you want to assess findings from all regions that the service is currently available in. And right now in preview, it is available in 9 regions, and that will certainly grow over time. But you can also specify which finding, no, not finding, which region you want to enable the service and if you want to just do it for a single region. So that is the various options you have here, but then it's as simple as start network analysis. There are no prerequisites to enabling the service. And what the network analysis is it will go into your account. The service will identify specific resource types, and I'll show shortly here what those resource types are. It will then run connectivity analysis between the resources. To do that, we leverage automated reasoning to understand whether there are routable paths between resources or not. And we actually look at the routable paths out to Internet Gateway to ascertain internet connectivity, both from an ingress and egress perspective. And then based on that, we are then evaluating any sort of firewalls that we discover. And the supported firewalls right now are WAF security groups and network ACLs. So we're evaluating those, whether they are present, whether there are certain rules deployed in them that meet certain conditions. And I'll dive into a little bit into what those conditions are that drive our findings. But that is how we effectively are constructing a customer's network topology so that we can raise findings and identify configuration gaps.
About the analysis in the regions,
Mhm.
Neil. So what you have on the screen, if I enable all the regions, where is the data aggregated to? Is it going to a single region, a specific region, or do I get a choice? Or if I enable it regionally, so if I enable it only for like 3 regions, I have to go to
Mhm.
each individual region to see the findings, or is that somehow aggregated for me?
It is not aggregated at the moment, so you would have to toggle through each individual region at the moment. So I can provide a little bit of insight into that. So here you select the various region in question, and this is enabled in a number of regions here, but you would have to toggle through each one separately, for example.
Gotcha. So it's a global service from, but it's allows you to cycle through the findings in each individual region. Okay, got it.
Correct. Yeah, and to your earlier question, it is we are storing the data in each individual region, so uh, we're not we're not sending all the data to a single region to be viewed. We are providing views into the data in each individual region that's being stored in those regions.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's some interesting question already, and I wonder if this makes sense to talk
Sure.
about it straight away. So Tech First is asking about overlap with other services we have. So we know we have GuardDuty, right? That's doing
Hmm.
findings. Also, I would add to this Network Access Analyzer, which is also using the automated reasoning, and it can tell you what things can talk to the
Hmm.
internet.
Hmm.
Um, and then a little bit of Trusted Advisor. I know we touched on it already. How do these different services play together? Is this like will pull on some of those details, allow you to aggregate them easier, or is this finding completely different information?
So these findings are different information. They are relying on similar definitions. So, for example, some of these findings are leveraging the same definitions that you find in, say, AWS Security Hub, right? Things like overly permissive access um, for a security group, for instance, is something that is a control that you can enable in Security Hub today. So there is some overlap there. The difference there, and we can get into the details there, is adding the network context to that kind of a control and saying that, okay, yes, the security group might be overly permissive, but is there a NACL in front of it that is restricting traffic, right? If so, the severity of that misconfiguration would be lower, right? As opposed to it is completely wide open. There is nothing upstream of it between that security group and the internet gateway that is restricting traffic in any way. So if we're in a situation like that, we would raise the severity of the configuration issue that we cite. So that is the key difference.
It's interesting. So the security hub findings would ultimately just say this thing looks odd or potentially misconfigured, but it doesn't provide you the surrounding context
Hmm.
of, oh, this is an open security group, but it's sitting in a completely isolated VPC with no IGW, no routes. So it really
Right,
doesn't matter at that point how restricted that security group is. Maybe not so much anymore. But if it's
right,
an instance open to the internet, all of a sudden it becomes critical. Okay.
right.
I I wonder if I'm sure those questions are going to come up, but like so there's all these little data sources popping up like with some really useful information. I wonder if there's like a long-term strategy of figuring out how to make all of them better together, right? I'm sure
Yes.
there's questions from customers already coming in that direction.
Yes, absolutely. We are already getting that feedback from customers, and that is something that we are evaluating on an ongoing basis. And so, yeah, we are certainly aware that customers are using these other services in many cases together. And so, the intention is to provide a cohesive experience for customers and not and make it clear in terms of where you go for what.
Gotcha.
All right. One quick thing I did want to call out here, this banner at the top, which is the Amazon Q capability here. So alongside the launch of this service, there is also a new Q developer capability, specifically for the console chat, as well as the Amazon Q chat experience through other chat applications like Slack and others. And so the idea is that if you have enabled this service, Network Security Director, Amazon Q can then begin to answer questions about your network security posture, right? If you wanted to know, for example, um, do I have overly permissive access on a given EC2 instance, for example? It would reference the data in this service to answer that question. You could ask about your network security risks, or whether you're at risk of a certain threat vector like DDoS. And then it would respond back to you and let you know if a given resource or any set of resources in your account are at added vulnerability to a threat vector like that. And so there are some example questions or prompts here that you can begin to provide to Q, and Q can respond back. It will not only respond back with whether the configuration issue or the threat or what have you is present, but it'll also provide you with a remediation guidance in the sense of here are the step-by-step here are the steps you can take to resolve that configuration issue. And that is something that is also delivered by the service, which is for every finding we raise, we are also providing you with step-by-step instructions, links to relevant documentation to resolve the issue in question. That takes into account the network context as well.
Nice. You kind of feel like I would want that service for not just security, network security. I want that for anything I'm building in AWS. Just give me those hints and tips as I'm going
Yeah,
through it, right?
yeah, absolutely. And the idea is that we want to make it as easy as possible for you to get to the right service and configure those services with very little added cognitive load or overhead, if you will, in terms of how to set those things up.
Cool. And I see you already have a bunch of findings, 7
Yep.
critical findings. So hopefully you're going to show us what's going on in your account.
Yep, absolutely. So this is the key. This is the main dashboard of the service that you get to once a network analysis has been completed. So you will see a notification in the console when that is complete, and you will see a summary of your resources. And so one key concept that is worth understanding here is that a resource has a severity, such as critical, high, medium, low. Um, the resource in question can have one or more findings, right? And so the severity of the resource is a function of the most severe finding, which is why you see the the sentence here: resources with most severe composite finding severities. And what that means is we're taking a composite of the finding severities that occur on the given resource, and we're providing you with the maximum value of that for your resource. So we see 7 critical. That means there are 7 critical resources, but those resources could have far more findings. I mean, that's why you see. I can show you further down
Yeah.
here
Yeah, I think that's super
a
helpful because a
large
lot
number of
of the
findings.
times I think the SEM systems, like you really want to aggregate your findings. You don't want to be
Yeah,
flooding somebody with, I misconfigured the same instance on
exactly.
7 different ways and I get so many alerts about it. Give me just one alert and tell me to fix that instance. So,
Absolutely. And that was a key piece of customer feedback that we focused in on is how do we get, how do we raise or elevate the most critical items to go fix and to cut down on the myriad of findings that typically get generated. Um, so from here, you also see a distribution of severity by resource type. So these are the resource types that we currently analyze. We analyze API Gateway, CloudFront, EC2, application load balancers, and a few more. I'll show you further down. You also see a distribution by severity type here. Informational is something where, and this gets to another capability we have to help you tailor the actual the number of findings that contribute to the resources severity is finding suppression. So if a finding, for example, is something that a customer might find acceptable, like for example the case I provided earlier, the security group might be wide open, but if the traffic is being restricted by something further upstream, then maybe it's okay that the security group is left wide open, right? That could be a reason why. And so as a result, a customer may wish to suppress the finding associated with the security group on that resource. And so we have a suppression capability here that allows you to effectively remove the severity contribution that that finding has for the given resource, in which case we classify it as informational. So
could
that's
I
what that is.
suppress it? Could I suppress it not just for a given resource, but suppress it in general? So if you see open security groups, but there's no internet gateway route, I don't want to consider that as a issue, right? Because that I might have my scenario, my network environment has these particular requirements, so I don't want to get even informational alerts or any kind of alerts about this setup because I know this is what I have to do, and it's not exactly perfect. And a lot of customers have, weird quirks or weird requirements that force them to do something that's useful for them, but might not actually align with all of the perfect guidances.
Yeah, so right now it does not. Right now, the suppression happens for a given finding on an individual resource. However, that is feedback we've gotten from customers about more flexible suppression needs. So that is something we continue to hear. But for the moment, this is providing a suppression for the for a finding on the individual resource level.
Got it. And there's a couple of questions in the chat from Ajit NK 2006.
Mhm.
Um, so the first one is kind of where could the findings be sent? What's the
Yeah.
integrations with AWS destinations, any external destinations, or what can we do with those?
Yeah, there are in preview, there are no integrations with other services or destinations to send this to. Is a way to export the list of findings though to a CSV directly from this console. So there is that option to be able to export the data here and potentially feed it into another tool or another system. So there is that. But again, that's also feedback we've gotten from customers, and that we are evaluating in the sense of what's the best way to provide that to customers in the future. But for the moment, this is not sending the finding information to any other service.
Got it. So if folks on the chat or watching on demand have feedback, they should reach out to their account teams and let us know
Yeah,
what destinations they want in that list.
absolutely.
Okay. And then a second question also from Ajit. I know we touched on it a little bit about us providing the guidance on remediation.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on automated remediation? I don't know how feasible that would be, I guess, if you're sharing so much about such a complex finding, I guess you can give some
Mhm.
guidance, but the guidance might be multi-step process to actually fix it. So I don't know how
Yeah.
likely it would be to easily do the automated remediation, especially if it's production environments we're talking about.
Yeah, so that is the challenging piece. Again, feedback we've gotten from customers in the past and continue to get. Um, the challenge there is a lot of our customers are also telling us that yes, I would like a way to automatically remediate, but there are a number of caveats that are associated with that. One is most customers are making changes to their environment via one infrastructure as code, so providing a recommended remediation would have to come in the form of infrastructure as code in some fashion, in a way that it can be tested, evaluated. In many cases, customers tell us that they need to be able to evaluate different versions of mitigations in their environments to see which ones are most effective, implementing them in, say, shadow modes as well, alongside whatever is currently in production before fully cutting over. So there are a lot of key considerations there. Most customers have said that they would not actually want a way to go and immediately fix something in production right away. They would want to evaluate it first in a we have other services within AWS that have, say, for example, account mode, where it is not taking action on your traffic, but is actually just counting the actions it would have taken if it were put into, say, a block mode. So there's that for consideration as well. So there's a lot to think through there in terms of how um, a customer would want um, automatic remediation, or even a workflow for remediation to work. So that's something that we are interested in getting more feedback on, so that we can better think about that.
Got it. Interesting. Thank you.
All right. So I will come down a little bit further here in the dashboard to give a little bit more of an explainer on the resources that we are analyzing. So I did call out these resources that you see here, but we provide a breakdown of what was analyzed. As part of analyzing EC2, we are also looking at ENIs, subnets. For ALB, for application load balancers, we are also evaluating target groups. We mentioned Internet Gateway previously. So those are the set of resources that we are analyzing at the moment. And then I also talked about WAF security groups and network ACLs. So this gives you a breakdown of how many of each have we found. You can filter these by various severities to get an understanding of my criticals, how many of them are, say, for example, EC2 instances or collaborative distributions, what have you.
So in this context, the resource is a compute instance, but at the same time, you can consider a individual security group a resource as well.
Correct. And in our worldview here, a resource is anything with an ARN, right? So if it is an actual AWS resource, then that's what we are classifying as a resource in this case.
And there's a question from Tech First about how often does the analysis run?
Yeah.
Is it a
So
continuous analysis, or is it on schedule?
right now it is manually triggered as part of the preview. So you do have to go in and manually enable the scan or the analysis each time. But that's very common feedback that we get from customers that they would like a way to either schedule or have a continuously or automated updates of analyses. So
Okay.
we're well aware of that. And then further down is a summary of findings by type. So these are the finding types that we are currently surfacing. This is not the full list, but this is just what has been found in this account. We're providing an overview of the number of findings, the breakdown of severities. So for example, this finding type is primarily low in general. Same situation here, but for this one here, the CloudFront related finding, 7 of them are critical. So I'll get into a little bit more as to why that is and what resources those occur on. And in fact, what I'll do is I will come back further here and I will go straight to that list of criticals, which happen to be EC2 instances in this case. So here you get the full list of critical resources. You also get the full list of number of findings here, related resources. So as I mentioned, we're creating a network topology here. And in doing so, we know what is currently connected to this resource, what is also associated by virtue of common tags as well. So for example, if you have resources that are part of, say, the same application, they may not be connected to each other, but they are the same, say, for example, have the same tag. So we would group those together or establish a relationship between those resources. So I'll go straight to this one here. And I'm going to reduce that drawer there, but we'll bring it back up in just a moment. But this is what I was referring to when I described the concept of a topology. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'll zoom back in shortly here. But effectively what we're doing is mapping a customer's network. And in doing so, we are showing a customer from their EC2 instance, for example, what is currently sitting between it and connectivity out to the internet, in this case, internet gateway. So here, for example, you have the EC2 instance. We find the severity here is critical.
Yeah. I was about to ask you to zoom a little bit.
Yeah. So we say we provide the severity, we provide the name for the resource. This icon indicates that this has been determined to be internet facing. These linkage icons indicate association via either a property like a tag or via connectivity. So that's where we've ascertained connectivity based on automated reasoning. So for example, this EC2 instance has in the ELB target group associated with it. It also has an ENI associated with it in front of it. That ENI is contained within this subnet. That ENI is also protected. That's what the shield icon indicates by this security group. And as part of the same, since it's within the same VPC, we've also identified the load balancer under the same security group. We identified the network ACL in front of it that's protecting the subnet. We provide the VPC data here too. And the connectivity out to internet gateway here. So you'll notice that some of these entities show not analyzed. That means we are not analyzing it for findings. We are specifically analyzing the other resources I previously mentioned here for the finding itself. And the reason for that is that we are either highlighting the individual resource in question, the computer networking resource like a load balancer, like an EC2 instance, or the quote unquote firewall, right? So in this case, the ACL, the security group, and then there is a WAF here as well. WAF Web ACL is here as well. So we're evaluating those constructs for misconfiguration in that sense. So because the subnet is effectively an interface, as is the ENI, we're not analyzing those for specific characteristics that would constitute a misconfiguration. We are evaluating the entities that protect them or that represent the critical path, the nodes in the critical path for traffic to flow in or out for an application.
Got it. You're highlighting the relationship with other components, but not all of them get analyzed. But
Correct.
without sharing that relationship, you're kind of getting using the breadcrumbs, you're getting to another component that's somewhere in the path that is actually analyzed that may have some additional findings for you to act on.
Correct. Exactly.
Cool. There's a question from Tech First again. From an account structure point of view, um, how was account supported for Shield Network Director? Can we run this across accounts? What happens if individual resources belong to different accounts? Because you can have scenarios where the VPC is actually shared, so the subnet and the ENI, actually ENI is in a different account, subnet is shared with that
Mhm.
account, but the VPC itself is yet another account, IGW is
Mhm.
another account. Can Network Director today deal with these kind of more complicated setups?
Because this is single account only right now, if you have other resources that reside in other accounts, even if they're shared, we do not analyze them since they don't reside in the current account. Um, that said, that is feedback that we hear all the time from customers during the preview. So that is something that we're taking a look at. But at the same time, um, we're well aware that there is during the preview here, you see that this is effectively providing visibility into north-south paths, and that there is a need for east-west analysis as well. That's what customers continue to tell us. So that's something we're well aware of. But at the moment, it is restricted to single account only.
Got it. Yeah. So for folks that may have joined a little bit later, this is still in preview, and we can't really talk about roadmap. So once it goes GA, we'll see exactly what features have launched, and then
Yeah,
we will be really wanting more feedback straight after that.
absolutely. Yeah, I would continue to plus one the earlier comment you made, Tom, about we continue to talk to your account teams. We would love to hear which of these are the most important to you. Um, that way it can better inform future enhancements.
Awesome. And then do you happen to know how quickly, roughly, would it take to analyze an account? We have a question from
Yeah,
chat.
so it's a function of the number of resources in an account. We currently have a limitation of being able to support up to 300,000 resources in an account. If you have, say, if you're enabling this in a test account that has, say, 100 resources, it may take a couple minutes. If you're less than that, it may take less than that. It also depends on the complexity of the account as well. So if are a lot of connections between resources, and that connectivity map is more complex than, say, another customer's, then that could take some more time. But typically on the order of a few minutes to run an analysis.
Gotcha.
All right, so what I'm going to do here is, since we did click on the initial EC2 instance here, I did want to provide insights into why are we showing this as critical, right? And so from here, within the topology view, you can see additional details associated with the resource, in this case, the ID, other metadata here, but you also see the list of associated resources. In this case, we've listed the resources that we navigated through earlier, the topology, and then you see the full list of findings. In this case, and I'm going to go quickly down to the critical one. This is we've identified the finding here that dictates that Since there's a CloudFront distribution in the topology, we're noting that the CloudFront origin, which is the EC2 instance, is still internet accessible, um, even with WAF protections on the CloudFront distribution. And I'll get into reasons why that is. And then there's remediation recommendations here, which are the steps to address the issue. But what I'm going to do is that there are a number of overview cards here for the various findings of this resource. So if you were to resolve the critical one, the severity of this resource would drop down to high because we have identified issues pertaining to both WAF as well as security groups on this resource. Now you might be wondering, why are we flagging a WAF related finding on an EC2 instance? Because an EC2 instance is not a WAF protectable asset or a WAF protectable resource rather. In doing so, and the reason for that again comes down to network context. What we're trying to communicate to you is that no matter how you have protected your resource or protect in terms of adding protection, say upstream on another AWS resource, another service, we're still letting you know that the actual origin of that application is at risk, right? Or letting you know that there is a potential vulnerability there. And so we wanted to bring the focus to this is your application that is vulnerable to specific things. And it is because it is the reason it is it has that finding and that severity level is because of the way it has been configured in other places. And so we wanted to lead you directly to the resource in question that is affected and then see the other parts of the topology where it can actually be fixed.
Got it. Yeah. So there's application load balancer, as we saw in front of that instance, that can have a WAF, and then I can get some information telling me that that WAF is not correctly configured. And then if I have a CloudFront distribution, which sounded like we had here as well, that can
Mhm.
also have WAF. So there's a bunch of different things front ending my application, each
Mhm.
one with its own setup requirement. So this will give me a kind of comprehensive view from the client all the way to my destination instance for all the components, and what can I do to improve my security end to end.
Absolutely. And the other benefit the topology view has here is what customers tell us uh, since we've launched in preview has been simply identifying unused, say, security groups that they are allowing overly permissive access, but they're just floating there. They aren't associated with anything. So in and of themselves, they are not risky. But if they were to be attached to something inadvertently, then that would pose a risk. And in many cases, our customers tell us that, hey, I need to clean these up just in case they get attached, right? And so that's one side benefit. Another side benefit is, for example, on the WAF side of things, in the scenario you outlined, where you have CloudFront, and then you have an application load balancer behind it. Um, in some cases, customers apply WAF to both, right? And sometimes there are good reasons for that. But generally speaking, the CloudFront distribution should be the only resource receiving traffic, and in many cases is. So at that point, there's really no need to filter traffic using WAF for the ALB as well, because it has already happened at the CloudFront distribution. So it's a way for customers to identify where you may have redundant protections as well, to help you potentially save on cost, things of that nature. So it helps in that regard as well.
Got it. Yeah. So then at that point, you do private origin from CloudFront, and then you
Yep.
really don't need WAF, because I've seen customers do double WAF, but that was usually prior to CloudFront supporting private origins,
Hmm.
and you were using the ALB WAF as just a way to validate or double validate that the traffic is coming
Right.
from the right distribution. So
Right.
that's no longer needed. I like the idea of, like, I think those security groups are a low hanging fruit. That's
Hmm.
coming up a lot, and it somehow was never really an easy thing to solve.
Hmm.
So it's nice to have that, like, you enable it, you see immediately which security groups are not really being used.
Right. Exactly. So I went quickly here to the resource details page, and that'll get us to the reasons for the why the finding was generated. But I did want to quickly call attention to the fact that you get a lot more information here about your resource. This was the top card here is what we saw in the previous view, but there's also a number of other metadata that we are pulling to help inform the findings that we have. We're pulling these attributes that you see here. We're providing you information around the internet facing direction. Is it inbound, outbound, things of that nature? the tags that we've identified on the resource, and then the full list of findings in their complete detail. So if we come to the CloudFront one that we previously highlighted, you are then provided with a list of checks that we made for this finding. And we are telling you whether the check we made passed or failed. And if it failed, that's the reason for why the finding was surfaced in the first place. And so here we're saying, this is an EC2 instance in question again, but there is an ALB in the CloudFront distribution upstream of it. And the ALB specifically has wide open security groups. So while you have CloudFront in front of it, that security group has not been configured to restrict traffic to only the CloudFront IP range, right? And so in doing so, someone could still get access to the application from a network layer perspective by accessing the ALB directly. And so what we want to bring to your attention, bring to the customer's attention, is that this should be closed off, right? Either by configuring the CloudFront origin capability that you just mentioned, Tom, or by configuring the security groups on the ALB. And we highlight the resources in question that contribute to this finding, as well as the remediation recommendation here. So as you can see here, we recommend that setting up the Elastic IP for the EC2 instance, configuring the security group, so on and so forth. All of that is listed here, as well as links to the relevant documentation.
Yeah, I guess it's going through either doing the private origin, I can really see, or yeah, because it seems to be going through some additional steps. I don't know if it got the fact that there's an ALB in front of it, because it's kind of recommending exposing the instance with an Elastic IP address, then supporting security groups. But I think I get the direction.
Yep. And then one thing just to quickly call out is the suppression ability here that we mentioned earlier. So this finding could be suppressed if this was intentional in some way.
And then is there a way for customers to provide feedback on what finding they would like to see? Because I'm assuming we came up with quite a comprehensive list of checks, but there's probably virtually a limited number of things we may want to look for. Is it just regular feature request mechanism that customers would provide to us, like, hey, we want this finding? Okay.
Yeah. The only other thing that is worth calling out here is just keying off the suppression capability is the findings management page where you can look at every single individual finding. This is the reason it's broken out by individual finding, regardless of resource, is to help with viewing all suppressed findings, for example, and managing those. And so this is the place where you would go to be able to view the full list of findings if you needed to.
So there's a question from the chat about other potential findings. I'm assuming we have a list of them in the documentation, but off the top of your head, do you remember if it is able to provide information about an expired certificate?
It is not at the moment. And so we've had customer feedback on this, on the findings specifically. Namely, and it's worth calling out here that the service right now is checking for the presence of certain firewalls, is checking for the presence of certain rule sets. It is not analyzing actual live traffic. And so the presence of certificates is another attribute that we're not currently checking. But that is something that we, again, have heard from customers. So we are considering that for future enhancement. But the primary thing that we hear from customers is to take these findings and potentially add additional color with the traffic information, which we're not currently doing. So that is something we're thinking about. But that, I think, the intent behind the preview launch here is to provide our best practices. And in many cases, some of these other finding types are very specific to individual customers and their business case. So, like for example, the one we get all the time from customers is I would love a finding to be able to identify with whether I'm getting traffic from certain countries, right? And so, in doing so, there's no way to generally state that or have that in as a general finding in the service because those requirements change from customer to customer. And so that is something that would be a little bit more bespoke, and we wanted this service at the moment to provide just the best practices that we would recommend for all customers. And so those are things, the customer specific things are things that we're thinking about. But we again would love feedback to that effect so that we can better prioritize which ones are most important.
Yeah, I can imagine maybe it's some kind of custom finding builder as well, right? The customers
Right,
could have a set of findings that are only relevant to them, kind of like we did with config and config rules,
absolutely.
where you could ultimately build whatever rules you want. It got a little bit more complicated, so it's like an easy way of, and maybe even Amazon Q way of just saying, I need a new finding, here's what I want, and then having some
Hmm.
kind of common language to build that new finding. That would be interesting.
Yep.
Cool, very cool.
All right. One quick thing I did want to demonstrate was using Amazon Q to ask questions about your posture here. So I'm not going to choose the pre-canned one, but I'm going to say, for instance, um, so by simply providing a question like this, what are my most critical cloud distributions? If, for example, you're building a web application and you have some already um, in a test environment, for example, and you just want to understand whether they've been correctly configured, you'll see here in the steps that the queue is taking, it is pulling data directly from Network Security Director, and will then summarize the results for you. So we'll give it a minute here. But other than that, that is effectively what we're intending to deliver here, making this as consumable as possible. And really the reason why we made this information available through Q is that um, typically customers who are looking at this type of information, these types of findings, are central security teams. But we wanted this information to also be available to application teams who, as they're building their applications, if they need to confirm whether they are correctly configured from a best practice standpoint for their own application, they can still find that out. And then they don't need to come directly to the service to view it. They can just ask that question from anywhere in the management console where they are building their app.
Nice.
All right, so it's identified a few distributions, the severity being medium. It's identified critical WAF configuration problems. It's also identified a couple medium severity resources. And here are the key security concerns. It's calling out that this distribution is lacking protections against these types of threats, load balancer integration issues in terms of configuration between the load balancer and CloudFront, like we mentioned earlier, and the recommended remediation actions, which are driven by the recommendations that the service is providing. Um, so, for example, we're recommending reviewing origin access, enabling security headers, things of that nature, making sure, recommend customers to turn on logging, to look at their traffic in the event that they might be worried about these types of threats. So Q can help guide customers to the right next steps.
Yeah, that's great. It looks super simple.
And one thing I would want to call out is you can upvote or downvote these responses, and we would love for folks to try this out and use this because we are actually looking at this.
Cool. Well, let's see. Any other questions from the chat? Neil, anything else you wanted to share other than, I guess this is currently in preview and you're
Yep,
free to use, people can play around, and we're looking for
yep.
feedback to hear about how it's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it well. Yeah, this nothing more to show here in terms of the demo, but yeah, it is available in preview in the 9 regions I mentioned, which are here. And then yeah, it's at no cost today, no prerequisites to get started. We would encourage customers to turn it on and provide any feedback you have.
Do I need to shut it down once I'm running in preview? Because just a question if, once we go GA, I'm assuming there's going to be a charge. Do I need to shut down my preview environment? Do I need to remember about it? Because I don't want to, if I'm running in my private account, I don't want to forget about it and then wake up to a
Yeah.
bill the next day.
No, no. So we will, we haven't quite determined this yet, but either there will be an opt-in to enable the service for GA from preview, and if you opt out, then we will simply deactivate the service.
Understood. So pretty safe to turn it on, just play around, and then that way
Absolutely.
we can have everyone try it out and have fun with it. Awesome.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. All right. Thanks everybody. I think we're close to time actually. This was great, Neil. I think everybody loves seeing a demo, so this was amazing. We probably will do more of those. Thanks everybody on the chat, and we'll see you next week.